Well, welcome everybody to the Monday Night Elite Expansion Team webinar, and thank you everybody for being on the call. Tonight we have a very, very special webinar tonight. It is with the lady and gentleman that you see in front of them is Andrea Waltz and Richard Fenton, and I actually met these two individuals on a cruise a couple of years ago called the MLM Cruise, where some of the top leaders in our profession, they go on this cruise to network and meet each other and to learn from each other's experiences, and so I had an opportunity to meet them, and what I learned from them is that no is actually a positive, and that was kind of interesting for me. I actually got their book and I started to read it, and I learned about some of the wisdom in the book, and then I kept in touch with these two individuals over Facebook, and then it just so happened that randomly I was sitting in a yogurt shop in downtown Orlando when they walked in, maybe about a month or two ago, and I had the pleasure of seeing them again, and they said, hey, we would love to do a special training for your team. And I thought, wow, well that would be fantastic. I think everybody experiences no, whether it's in their lives, in their businesses, in any sort of activity that you're doing, and if people can learn how to take no and make it a positive, that would really benefit them.
Muted.
They very generously agreed to be on this call today, and so I want to thank them first of all for taking the time to be on the call, and they are very, very accomplished speakers. They actually charge about $10,000 to speak at huge events, and they agreed to be on this call to speak with everybody about their experiences in the sales and marketing profession and in life in general. And we had a small training from them for the Orlando team a couple of weeks ago, and everybody loved it, so I know I'm looking forward to it. I know everybody on this call has been looking forward to it for the past week since we announced it. And once again, Andrea and Richard, thank you for being on the call, and the floor is yours. Okay, it seems like we may be having some technical Andrea and Richard, we can't hear you, so if you're on mute, possibly if you want to unmute yourself. Okay, it seems like we're still having some technical difficulties from Andrea and Richard's line, so we'll just wait another couple of seconds here until their volume is corrected. Richard and Andrea, can you hear me? Okay. Looks like they just might be relogging on. So everybody, thank you again for everybody wherever you are in the world. We want to thank everybody for being on the call. And tonight again we have an amazing, amazing training. I know that we have people from.
Oh, here we go. Can you hear us now, Leor?
Yes. I hear you loud and clear, Andrea and Richard. Thank you, and take it away.
All right. Well, thanks for bearing with us. Thanks for bearing with us. We appreciate it. So anyway, what I was starting to say is I appreciate the introduction. You are a true go for no person, Leor, just by virtue of asking us to join with you guys tonight. You obviously are a model for go for no. So it's great to be with everybody listening to this call tonight.
Yeah, not only are Andrea and I thrilled to have the opportunity to talk with all of you who are on the call, it's especially exciting for us to be talking to you about our favorite word in the whole world, the word no.
Yeah. Now, you might be thinking that sounds really strange, someone having no be their favorite word. After all, everybody loves the sound of the word yes. It's so positive, it's so empowering. And for most people, no is just the opposite. It's negative, it's draining, it's the antithesis of yes. But what if no could actually be the most empowering word in the world? What if you could achieve every quota, hit every income goal, and reach every personal dream by simply learning to hear no more often?
Yeah, now, the funny thing is that as kids, we weren't fazed at all when we heard the word no, were we? We shrugged it off. We laughed at it. We simply ignored it. But somewhere along the line, this natural sense of tenacity that we're born with tends to get lost, or worse, it tends to get drummed out of us. Now, just in case, everybody's starting to think, wow, this sounds like this is, simply rah-rah motivational stuff. Let us assure you it isn't. Over the next 50 minutes or so that we have with you, we're going to talk about a couple of core concepts, what we call core go for no concepts, that can start impacting your business and your results immediately. And when we say immediately, we're not talking about next week or next month or next year. We're talking about like tomorrow.
Exactly. So here is the first question that we want to ask you. And the question is, when you hear the word no, what does that no mean to you? How do you respond to a no internally in your mind? What do you say to yourself? I mean, is this the moment where you say, wow, I'm not going to get anywhere today. I don't have what it takes. I hate trying to get business. I'm terrible at prospecting, networking, getting meetings with people. I'm not going to be successful in this business. I mean, you see where I'm going with this, right? It's all that negative stuff that we put in our heads. And, it's really hard to kind of avoid that negative thinking. And also, how do you respond externally in your actions? What do you do when you get a no or a series of no's? Do you stop for the day? Do you get involved in other tasks and let the entire day go without making another call or contact? Do you go a week or a month? I know that sounds crazy, but some people do. It just stops them, for months sometimes. Do you avoid networking situations? Do you avoid asking referrals? All because you hate putting yourself in the position of getting rejected, of hearing no. And your answers to these questions are really telling, you guys, because they really, your response to the rejection, in this case the no's, is really the thing that ultimately spells the difference between long-term success and failure for millions of people all over the planet. It's not age or gender or training or skill or even the product or service being offered, even though you guys have a great product.
Right, and it's not the economy.
Yeah, nothing else but this. I mean, your relationship you have with the word no, and I'm guessing that you probably didn't realize that you had a relationship with the word no, but your relationship with the word no, what you think and feel when you hear it, how you internalize it, how you respond to it, whether you respond positively or negatively, and what you do with those no's, whether you seek opportunities to hear no or whether you run away from no, is one of the single most important factors in determining the level of success you will achieve. In fact, we're willing to go out on a ledge here and say that if you're not currently achieving the level of success you want in your life and this business, you are probably not failing enough. That is, you're probably not hearing no often enough. Now, the funny thing is that because Richard and I are known as the Go for No people, everybody assumes that we must somehow be fearless. And interestingly, really, nothing could be further from the truth. So we've got to lay a little foundation here, which is why Richard is going to start by sharing a couple core stories with you, and then we're going to get into some meat and some concepts.
Sure. I was working for my dad in the car business, and after a few weeks in my new sales position, I found that I was failing miserably. And I knew I had to do something. So I went back to my dad, and you have to understand how difficult this was. My father was a legend in the automotive sales industry, and here's a 20-something son having to go back to his sales legend father and having to actually say the words, I can't sell. And it was kind of funny because my dad took it extremely well. He surprised me. He said, you're right, Rich. He goes, I've never really given you any sales training. He said, come on in here. Let's make some calls together. Well, let's make some calls together really meant that my dad was going to be making some calls. And since this was really in a pre-speakerphone era, I only got to listen to one half of the conversation. So my father grabs his phone book, he flips it open to the rent-a-car section, runs his finger down the page and goes, here we go, ABC Rent-A-Car, Manheim Boulevard. He said, I've never called on these people before. He said, let's give them a call. Well, he dials the telephone, he gets the purchasing agent on the phone, and Lori, Christy, I am telling you, In 3 minutes, he gets an order for 20 cars. And that was it. That was the moment that I decided to quit the car business because I knew I could never do that. Well, at least I didn't think I could. You see, my father was, like I said, the quintessential sales natural. He was one of these people who could start a conversation with anyone, anywhere, anytime about anything. He had no fear. He had no hesitation. He had no doubt. He just did it naturally. Well, in this regard, I am not my father's son.
Yeah. Now, you might be thinking that this is the point in the story where Richard is going to tell you all about how he dug in and worked really hard and conquered his fear of selling, right?
Not so much. No. The truth is, when I say I quit my job, I did. I quit my job. I moved from Chicago all the way to Los Angeles to get as far away from selling as I possibly could, as far away from my father's sales legend shadow. And interestingly, when I got to LA, the first job I took was in sales. But this time I took a job in retail selling. Because I thought in the world of retail selling, I wouldn't have to go out and prospect for customers. I wouldn't have to, you know, quote, start conversations with strangers, unquote. People would just be coming into me. But the truth is, it didn't make any difference. I still found myself failing. And I'd been in a job for about 2 months. You know, I mean, to say that I wasn't doing well is an understatement. In fact, my sales were so abysmal, I was pretty sure they were going to fire me. And that's when I heard that the district manager, a man by the name of Harold, was scheduled to visit the store. And I thought that maybe if I could impress Harold on this store visit, they would give me some more time to improve my sales. Well, Harold showed up at 9:30 in the morning. We had donuts and coffee. The store opened up at 10. And because I was the first person in that morning, I got what they call the first up. I got to help the first customer. And in walks this well-dressed gentleman who immediately announces that he wants to buy an entire wardrobe of clothing. And I thought, wow, this is it. I mean, you know, what luck. This is my chance to impress Harold. And sure enough, within about a half an hour, I had an $1,100 sale, which was a good sale for the time. I was really proud of myself. And I was certain that Harold was going to be, you know, super impressed, right? Well, Harold finally, you know, made a little comment to me. He said, hey, kid, that was a nice sale. And then there was this long moment of silence. And then Harold would proceed to ask me a question that would literally change the course of my life. Harold said, out of curiosity, Richard, he said, what did that customer say no to? And at first, I was a little angry. You know, I thought he was going to, you know, give me a big compliment. But then I stopped and I thought about it, and I mentally reviewed this sale in my mind from beginning to end, and I realized that that customer hadn't said no to anything. Every single thing that I showed that man, he purchased from me. I said, Harold, the customer didn't say no to anything. And then Harold asked the other really great question. He said, then how did you know he was done? Well, I'm going to tell you all how I knew he was done. Okay? You see, at that young age, with the income I had at that time, I had never spent $1,000 on a shopping trip on myself in my life. The idea of walking into a store and spending $2,000 or $5,000 or $10,000, that was outside of my consciousness because I had a $1,000 mindset. And when any customer got to my mental $1,000 spending limit, they were done. I would shut the sale down, I would ring them up and send them on their way. Harold said, you know, Richard, I watched you sell. And he said, you know what, kid? He said, you're not half bad. He said, but your fear of the word no is going to kill you. And then he said the final little magical words. He said, but if you could just get over that, he said, I think that you could become one of the great ones. Well, I mean, it was amazing. I'd gone into work that morning thinking that they were going to fire me, and I went home that night, 2 letters from greatness. I mean, you know, the letters were N-O, no. I thought, I could do this. I could fail more, and I believed him. Now, while this is my personal story, I'm pretty sure that I'm not alone here. It is very likely that my story is at least to, you know, some degree, your story too. And if it's not your story, it's the story of some of the people who are on your team or people who will be on your team in the future.
Yeah, exactly. You know, because most people spend their careers, their lives, seeking success, all the yeses. You know, that's kind of the world we've all grown up in. I like to call it a go for yes world. And while, you know, simultaneously doing everything within their power to avoid failure, avoid hearing no's, which is a recipe actually that ensures mediocre performance. Intentionally increasing your failure rate, and by that we mean intentionally increasing the number of times people say no to you, is actually, ironically, the ultimate strategy for achieving long-lasting and sustainable performance. Because when you go out of your way to increase the number of no's you hear, actually the yeses are going to start showing up at your door in greater quantities than you ever could have imagined. And you know what? They're going to show up in surprising ways, and they're going to show up stress-free, and that's part of it. And I hope that what you guys are starting to get here, and we're going to start to cover some what we call core go for no concepts, and we also are going to save time for Q&A. So as Richard and I are sharing some concepts here with you, you know, if you have a question, if you have something that bugs you, if something that a burning thing, be sure to, we'll save time at the end and we'll do this Q&A, because it's really important that if you've got a question on your mind, other people probably have a question on their mind too. So just keep that in mind, that we're going to do some Q&A here, and just keep that piece in mind. Okay, so continue.
Okay. Well, we're going to show you a little model here on the screen.
Yeah.
And what I want to share with you now is that before that particular day with Harold, I had been operating using kind of a mental model that had me in the middle, and it had success. In other words, having people buy from me, people saying yes to me on one end, and failure, rejection, and having people say no to me on the other. And I thought it was my mission in business and in life to do everything within my power to move towards success while simultaneously doing everything within my power to avoid having people reject me or say no to me. What Harold got me to see was that there was a second model, a more effective model. Harold said, Richard, he said, the way that you should be thinking, he said, and the way that all great performers think, is that you're on one end with failure and rejection and hearing the word no in the middle, and this success that you want so desperately on the other end. He said, failure and rejection and hearing the word no, these are not things that you should be trying to avoid. He said, these are actually things that you should be seeking. He said, because the failure and rejection and hearing the word no, he says, these are the things that are the stepping stones on the road to success. Now, put another way, what Harold pretty much taught me that day was that yes is the destination, but no is how you get there, which happens to be the subtitle of our book. Now, Harold said, you know, Richard, he goes, most people, when they get to the sign marked failure, they just figure they're heading in the wrong direction. He goes, and they would do what anybody would do if you think you're heading in the wrong direction. They stop, turn around, and they head back home, thinking that success has got to be back in the other direction. He said, but it's not. He said, when you see the sign marked failure, and when people start rejecting you, and people start telling you no, and you start experiencing failure, he said, success is not back behind you. It is almost always straight ahead. He said, you need to see the no's as the stepping stones to that success.
Mm-hmm. So the idea here is to start living in a go for no world, where you start to see no differently. And it can make things a lot more fun and a lot more empowering, and that's really the goal. So again, I think I alluded to this. You know, while we're gonna talk about some core, what we call core go for no concepts, and we're really proud of the book that we wrote. You guys can see a little picture of it there in the corner with us leaning against it. What we also created was what we call the Mastering Go for No program, which we spent a couple years creating. And it's designed around 20 core Go for No concepts that really teach you how to master Go for No in any business that you're in. And so what we're going to do is share some of these concepts so that you can start using Go for No immediately. And when we started this call, you know, we said you can do this stuff immediately. And I think that's the fun, cool thing about it. So I want to share with you a little idea here, a little thought, if you will. And it has to do with something that we call your no quotient. And we like to say that your NQ, or your no quotient, is significantly more important than your IQ or your intelligence quotient. And probably a lot of you have heard of IQ, right? It stands for intelligence quotient. And interestingly, the vast majority of people have no idea what their IQ is, but that's okay. It honestly doesn't matter, because honestly, for whatever your IQ is, it just doesn't matter. Having a high IQ, it's just not all that critical when it comes to the level of success you'll achieve. In fact, when you look around, and you've probably done this, you see that the world is filled with low-performing, quote, smart, right, intelligent, high IQ people, and vice versa, high-performing, quote, low IQ people. And here's why that is. The number that really matters in business, in your business and in your life, is your NQ, your no quotient. The number of times, you can call it your FQ too. We call it FQ sometimes, which stands for failure quotient. This is the number of times that you are willing to get knocked down and get back up, knowing full well that you are almost certain to get knocked back down again. That's really the number that determines greatness in today's world, and really perhaps the only number, because the history of the world's greatest people, the movers and shakers and doers, is really a collection of stories of people with high no quotients. So we wanted to give you guys a little gift. We have here on the screen asking you, how high is your no quotient? Well, you can go find out, actually. You go to our website at goforno.com. There's the code on the screen. It's 1001. What you have to do when you go to the site is you have to scroll down and look for a little graphic on the right-hand side that says, what's your no quotient? And you click that and you type in that code and you can take the assessment. And it's a really fun assessment to kind of see where your mindset is with all of this stuff. And for some of you, you've heard things, you've heard messages like this. For others of you, this is going to be brand new. But for everybody, everybody's got a no quotient, and I think you'll find it fascinating. And so go in and type that code in and find out what your no quotient is. Because here's the thing, you guys, the people in your business, the people that get all the awards, that walk on stage and get all the accolades and all of that, these are people with high no quotients. Yes, they probably have a great knowledge of the product. They've built their skills. But I'm telling you that they have also tapped into the Go for No method, whether they articulate it or not, and they are literally talking to tons of people and failing their way to success and hearing no a lot. They're not just succeeding, they're also literally failing their way to success. So I want to go ahead and move to our next really important concept. This is from our training program, and this has to do with goal setting. One of the things that we like to say is having yes goals is important. Having no goals is critical, and I'm not talking about having no goals, just so you're clear on that. We all know how important it is to set goals, and the problem sometimes is in the type of goals that we set. And most of us, I would say all of us actually, operate with what are commonly called yes goals, or goals for the number of times that people are going to say yes to us. How many sales or dollars that we generate. And it's a fine approach, and yet it has a very interesting flaw to it. And the flaw is that once we achieve the goal, or even as we get near achieving the goal, we tend to divert our attention to other tasks, or we reward ourselves for our success. But how do we reward ourselves? Well, it's very interesting, by slowing down, by taking time off, by getting involved, going to movies or golf or shopping, or getting involved in all the non-sales oriented tasks, right? Like catching up on paperwork, or just doing other things. So here's the approach that we want to share with you that can really increase your performance. And this approach is to stop setting the yes goals and start setting no goals instead. And by the way, I am not saying don't have a vision board. I'm not saying don't write down your ultimate life dream and life goals. I'm talking about tactical goals that you have on a daily or weekly basis here. So in other words, stop setting goals for the number of sales you intend to make, or the number of people that you want to add to your team, which are all the yeses, and start setting goals for the number of times people say no to you. So what we're talking about here is to start operating with a failure quota, rather than just that success quota. Now, we know it's kind of weird, it requires a shift in thinking, but when you do something like this, I'm telling you, the results can be immediate and dramatic. And I love to give this example. We give this all the time because Richard and I tried this when we first launched our business years ago. We set yes goals like everybody else. And in our case, we had a goal for the number of times a company would hire us to speak and do training. And so, we had a goal of getting, 4 bookings a month. And so what we would do is we'd get on the phone, start calling companies, and sometimes we'd get lucky and we'd book the 4 programs we wanted in that first week. So what do you think we did with the rest of the month? Well, we took time off. We went to the movies, we laid by the pool, and then one day we had an epiphany. We said, oh my gosh, we realized we were starting to teach people to go for no, but we really weren't practicing it practically ourselves. So we decided to change the way we set goals, and we started setting no goals. And we just said, okay, let's set a goal to have 100 companies say no to us each month. And when someone said yes to us, we didn't, stop to overly celebrate because we had to keep going to hit our no goal. And that was the difference. We just didn't focus on getting those yeses. We were almost frenetic in getting our no's, and quite frankly, it was really hard, actually. And what was amazing is that we found that any month in which we were actually hitting the no goal, or even when we got close to it, we ended up with more business than we knew what to do with. And whenever things, got kind of lean, whatever, we'd have a down period, we could always look back on the calendar a few months and discover a month that we were not hitting our no goals.
Right, and that's the insidious thing about only having yes goals, about only setting goals for the number of people you're going to add to your team or the dollars you're going to generate. Because sometimes these goals end up limiting your performance rather than driving it upward. Okay? But if you stay focused on the behaviors necessary to be successful, and in this case, in your business, really in almost any sales-oriented business, we're talking about hitting your no goals, you will find that the yeses will come. They will come automatically, and they will almost start to come in what we call a stress-free environment, because they always do.
Right, and because there's no pressure to, how when you live in that go for yes world, there's that whole pressure that you're trying to get that yes, and you need that yes, and you want that yes, and people can feel that pressure, and they're not attracted to pressure like that. You guys know that the product sells itself, right? You know how beautiful it is, it's attractive, it's stunning, and yet you also know that you have to talk to people. So when you set this no goal, you let all of that work in your favor, and you just focus on your activity without having that pressure-filled piece of getting those yeses.
Right, and one of the mantras that we have learned recently is that no is a perfectly acceptable answer. Now, yes is better, right? We know that. We all want to hear yes, okay? But no is a perfectly acceptable answer. And when you go into a sales situation, understanding that no is a perfectly acceptable answer, if it's the wrong person, the wrong time, the wrong size, the wrong price, the wrong whatever, and it's just not right for them, and they say no, and you're good with that, the ironic thing is people will start to say no to you less because they don't feel pressured when you're willing to accept a no. There will be a draw and a pull. And that's part of the magic of the go for no idea.
Yeah, and it just makes things way more fun for you. And I hope you guys get that this whole process is not about suffering or beating your head against the wall to, get a bunch of no's. You can make it fun, and it can be empowering. All right, so let's move on to this next really important concept, and that is number 4 from our program, and it's to focus on quantity first, quality second.
Right. So now what do we mean by that? Focus on quantity first and quality second. Well, specifically what we're talking about here is the quantity and the quality of your sales and your recruiting presentations. Quantity refers to the number of people that you are going to approach with the fairy story. Okay?
Well, quality refers to how well you explain the features and benefits of the products and also the business opportunity.
Right. Now, Andrea and I do not want to discount the importance of doing a quality presentation when it comes to influencing people and achieving success in life. Your organization has put together some of the most beautiful sales materials we have ever seen with one of the best, most compelling stories. But the reality, the truth is that the number of presentations you make,
the number of doors you knock on.
I guess you could say the number of people that you're attempting to recruit.
Yeah, in other words, the number of shots you take is significantly more important than how well, or I guess how perfect you do it.
Right. Now I'm going to tell a little story here. I started out telling you about my embarrassing start, with my dad. Well, here's another little thing from my car business years. When I first started in the car business, I noticed that my father had a piece of masking tape stuck to the back of his telephone receiver. And on it he had written 3 words. And I want to mention here, this is the man who was the #1 seller of General Motors product in their history. And he had the 3 words that he thought were the most important 3 words in the universe when it came to selling. So if you've got a pen nearby and you're only going to write down 3 words on this entire call.
Besides go for no?
Yeah, besides go for no. Please write these 3 words down. On the back of my dad's phone, he had written unseen, untold, unsold. Unseen, untold, unsold. Well, being new to the business of selling, I asked my dad what that meant. And my father said, Richard, he said, selling is nothing more than telling your story to as many people as you can, as fast as you can. He said, if people remain unseen and untold, he said, they will forever remain unsold. So listen, let's just face it, right? It does not get any simpler than that. What we're trying to communicate here is that the best, most perfect approach in the world, okay, the one about Ferry's products and about the opportunity and the company and the leadership and the history, the one that you've worked for hours and maybe days on, is completely wasted if you don't deliver it. While the worst stuttering, stammering, unfilled presentation in the world has a chance to create magic for the right person at the right time. It does not matter how smooth you are or whether you can answer every question that somebody's going to throw at you. What matters is that you tell your story to as many people as you can, as fast as you can. Now, we're actually willing to go out on a little bit of a limb here and say that you could approach someone with this approach, okay? Hold on to your seats. You could approach somebody and say, you don't want to know about Ferry, do you? And you know what? And that's a pretty bad approach, right?
It is.
Yeah. And you know what? Some people are going to say, I don't know, what's Ferry? And suddenly you're going to find yourself in a conversation about your product and about the organization. And that is the goal. The goal of the approach is to engage in a conversation. It is not to do it perfectly. It is to engage in a conversation and to create a chance for magic to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Now, obviously, we don't recommend you actually use that approach. And quite frankly, we know that when you are wearing the earrings and wearing the sunglasses and the watches, you're probably getting approached a ton, right? So you have to kind of be able to respond to people in a very friendly, approachable way. But it's a great example when it comes to really having that in-depth conversation to make the point that the worst presentation that is delivered is infinitely better than the perfect presentation that's never delivered. That's what we're getting here. Because I should say. Because the problem is that, many people spend so much time preparing and working on their, quote, approach that they never get around to approaching anyone. Somehow they're just never quite ready enough. Well, the best way to perfect the quality of your approach is to get out there and increase the quantity of people that you approach. So I know that this is a little controversial. I told you we were going to have time for Q&A, so if something pops up for you, we will absolutely address it.
Yeah, and in this way, what we're suggesting is that you now have a chance for the SW, 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 SW principle to go to work for you. And that means some will, some won't, so what? Someone's waiting.
Some will. You're going to make your presentation, whether it's just because somebody wants to buy or they want to join the business, and they're going to like what you have to say, and they're going to love the story, and it's going to be easy. Some won't, no matter what you do, no matter, price, it just doesn't matter. So what? This is where your response to hearing no comes in. This is where your response to your attachment to the outcome, in this case, your attachment to the yes, needs to become so what? And then really after that, sorry about the train.
Leora knows about the train.
Yeah. And this time of night we got train. And immediately after that, someone's waiting. So this idea of someone's waiting is really important though, because the question is, do you have someone waiting? And do you have that list of people that you've spoken to over the last 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, right, who said no? And maybe they weren't ready to buy. Maybe they had something in mind, but they weren't ready to put any money down on it and begin. Maybe they were interested in the business, but they weren't ready to, to start. Have you followed up with this person? Maybe you got a, business card of someone that you got a week ago and you just haven't called them. You probably have a, list of people that are happy customers that you can get on the phone and start calling and asking for referrals. So is there someone waiting? Absolutely, there's someone waiting. There is always someone waiting. You know that. However, the problem is because we operate in this go for no type of world, meaning we're always operating in a way that has us avoiding situations where we might be rejected. We kind of avoid that someone's waiting list, or we get kind of lazy. We just kind of wait for the easy transaction to take place. Maybe we hope to get spotted. We hope to have other people start all the conversations, and so what happens is we just are always waiting for opportunities to happen for us without getting out there sometimes and making it happen. So when you take that someone's waiting seriously and you really make an effort to work your lists and follow up, what happens is that when you do get the no, you have far less emotional reaction, that bad or toxic reaction, because you know that you have all those opportunities to go to. You know that there are all those people waiting for you, and you've got to keep going and go quickly and move on to those people that are, quote, in your pipeline, so to speak.
Yeah, and one of the very interesting things that I heard years ago, and I think it's really appropriate here, and it's that when doctors are, when they go to medical school, one of the things that they are told, one of the things that they are taught, is that every doctor is eventually going to lose a patient. And if you stay in the profession long enough, every doctor is going to lose a lot of patients. And the question is, how does a doctor get past losing a patient? And the answer is with a single word, and the single word is next. Now, that doesn't mean that they're cold and callous. What it means is that if you spend a lot of time focusing on the one you lost, then you're not focused on the right thing. The right thing is there's somebody else who's waiting in the waiting room, or who's going to be your next appointment, or it's going to be the next operation, who's the next person that you can help. The parallels to what you do in your business, what we do in our business, and to what a doctor, and the way a doctor needs to think is really strong. You cannot get all hung up and spend a lot of time in the, oh, I just lost one. You've got to get on with the, okay, there's someone else who's waiting, who needs our products, who needs our services, who needs the opportunity, who needs my expertise, so that you can move forward as quickly as you can. So,
yeah, I'm glad you said that, actually, because I think what you're getting here is the whole point of this is to not only increase your failure rate and not only increase the number of times you're hearing no, but to also really work on this emotional component. And one of the ways that you do that is by kind of moving quick and not focusing on all of those no's, which we tend to do. We tend to, when we hear that no, we look at it as kind of like the end of the world, and that was the person that was going to make or break our business. That's not true. The person that could make your business might be the next person that you talk to. And if you're wallowing and you're feeling frustrated and you're crying over that no, that's not going to serve you. So what we suggest that you do, especially if you're setting no goals, is say, you know what, it was a no, no big deal. Someone's waiting. Celebrate the fact that you made the attempt, that you had the conversation. Maybe they're going to be, on your follow-up list, and really celebrate the transaction and celebrate what happened and be proud of yourself, because you're in action, and ultimately you can't control other people's behavior, what they're going to decide, do, or spend. So be proud of that and then reward yourself and move on. That kind of nicely brings us to our next go for no concept.
Right, and that is that no doesn't mean never. Okay, no means not yet. Now, for those of you who love numbers, here come the numbers. You ready? And this would be a good time to have a pen out as well. 44% of all salespeople, anyone trying to sell anything, product, service, idea, doesn't matter, give up after hearing one no. They hear one no from somebody and they say, okay, that's it, I'm not going to go back to that person again. 22% more give up after hearing a second no. 14% more give up after the third no. 12% more give up after the fourth no, which means that 92% of all people give up before getting a fifth no from someone. And yet the same research project that this came from shows that 60% of all customers say no 4 times before they finally say yes. Think about that. 60% of all customers are going to say no 4 times before they finally say yes, whether they're buying the product or whether they're joining the team, whether they see the opportunity as something they want to do. Most people are going to say no 4 times. It's that magical 5th time that's kind of the threshold, where eventually somebody may give you a chance to say, okay, great, listen, let me see the catalog. Let me hear about the opportunity. What is this? The interesting thing about this whole thing is that most salespeople end up asking themselves, how do I get in the top 10% of the team? How do I end up on the stage? How do I end up getting the trophy and the reward and the big bonus check? And the answer is, you've got to be in the game when the majority of people finally say yes. Well, if 92% of all the salespeople have quit after the 4th no, but 60% of the customers are still there waiting to buy, it's not a surprise that the bulk of the business always goes to a very small percentage of people. It's because they have mastered the ability to be persistent and tenacious and to stay in the game, and they understand that somewhere around the 4th, 5th, 6th no, maybe it's the 7th, maybe the 8th, it doesn't matter. They're going to still be in the game when the person finally says yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, another interesting thing about staying in the game is so important because you are actually building trust with people. I mean, if you talk to somebody and then 3 months later you're doing something else, and then you talk to another person, you know, the same person, and 3 months later you're involved in something else, well, that doesn't build trust. But when you follow up with someone literally every few months and you're talking about the same products and you're sharing all of the wonderful things that you're doing and exciting things that are happening, that's building trust for other people, that they see, wow, you're hanging in there, you're still in the game. It's really got to be a worthwhile opportunity. So we want to talk about something a little unusual here, and I think you know that we use the terms failure and no interchangeably because we understand that people see no as a failure in most cases. And so we want to talk about something that we call the 5 failure levels. We actually have these, we talked about these a little bit in our training program, and we also cover these in our Go for No book. And we wanted to share these because it really will help you, I think, adopt this new mindset and really see how failure interacts with no and your eventual success here.
Right. So level 1 is the ability to fail. And let's face it, right, 100% of the people on the planet have the ability to fail. It's really kind of, I guess you say, where everybody starts. The sad thing and the really bad thing is that very few people ever move past this basic level, which is just simply the ability to fail.
Mm-hmm. And level 2 is the willingness to fail. Level 2 people develop the willingness to fail, but they still, you know, they don't enjoy it much. I mean, they see it as a necessary evil, so to speak. It's tolerated. People who, hopefully a lot of people who read our book can make it to this point where they're willing to fail, but they're still not having a lot of fun.
Right. And then this is where it gets interesting, okay? And I hope you're paying attention right here because this is the thing, okay? It's level 3. It's the wantingness to fail, not the willingness to fail, okay, where you do it begrudgingly, but the wantingness, where you actually want to hear people say no to you more often. You want to increase the amount of failure and rejection you experience in your life. And what's so interesting about this level 3 thing is that probably in reality, fewer than 5% of people ever get to this level for any sustained period of time. But when you can get to level 3, when you can actually have a day where you are wrapping up at the end of the night, it's 9:30, you're turning off the lights, you're heading off to bed, and you actually find yourself saying, wow, I didn't have many people say no to me today. I'm going to do better tomorrow. Let me tell you, when you can get to that level, opportunities that you can't even imagine right now are going to open up to you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Level 4 is about failing bigger and failing faster. You know, the people who get to level 4 have come to the conclusion that if failing is good, quote, hearing no, right, then failing faster is better. And not just failing faster, but also failing bigger. I mean, after all, a no is a no is a no, no matter who it's coming from.
Yeah, you know, as the saying goes, easy yeses produce little successes.
Yes, and I think tonight I was online and I saw a spectacular engagement ring that you guys have that was $55,000. Now that's an example of a really big no. I like it. I don't, Richard, that's a hint to you.
Yes, thanks.
Talk about go for no. When thinking about going for a big no, though, seriously, the real question and the only question should be, do you have something that this person might benefit from? And if you believe that you do and you are sold on the benefits, then you need to put your own fear or apprehension aside and get on with telling them your story. And there are probably some people that you are not approaching for whatever reason, whatever you've come up with. And remember that we all tend to, because we live in this go for, yes world, come up with stories and excuses as to why people are going to tell us no. It's all of that prejudging that goes on. They don't have the money. They'll never buy this particular product. They'll never join my business. They have no interest. It's all that stuff that we like to make up in our minds about what people are going to do. Well, the reality is that when you're going for no and you're trying to increase your no's, all of that stuff doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that you go for no and that you do it a lot and you do it with as many people as possible.
One of the very interesting stories that we had told to us to this point here is, and this goes, and we're going to put two things together now. And this is this idea of setting no goals and this idea of failing bigger. We had a young lady who went through one of our training programs. She contacted us later and she said, I decided to set a no goal of 10. She goes, I was going to get 10 people to tell me no that week. And she said it was Friday evening around 5:30, 6 o'clock. She said, I was at the end of the week, and she said, I was really disappointed because I had only gotten 9 no's. And I didn't get the 10th no. And she said, I was really disappointed. Now just think about that in a change of attitude. So now this is a woman who's developed the wantingness to hear no more often. And suddenly she said, I thought, you know what? She goes, my doctor. My next door neighbor was a doctor. And she said, for the previous 2 years, I kept saying to myself, he's a professional. He makes hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. He wouldn't be interested in my, my measly little business. He would never join. And she said, I'd always avoided approaching him because I always knew that he would tell me no. And she said, and now the tables were turned. I wasn't, looking for him to say yes to me. She said, I needed that 10th no. And she said, I was absolutely positive that he would be my 10th no for the week. So she said, I went and got dressed up. I went across the yard. I walked up, rang his doorbell. He was home. I told him what I wanted to talk to him about. He invited me in. Here is why we say when you go for no, it can get magical. She said, not only did he join my team, she said, he is now the highest performer and the biggest leg in my business. Why? Because she stopped prejudging him. And she started going for more no's. She started failing faster. She started having no goals. And she was willing to fail bigger. The person who she thought was the person who would never say yes, she said, what the heck? Let's go for it. Let's give it a shot.
Absolutely. And so that brings us to level 5, which is failing exponentially. This is a function of team leadership. And Christy and Leor tonight bringing us on here, that's what we're doing tonight. They are enlisting others to fail with them because they know that if driving their own failure rate can increase their success, then everybody, all of you, failing, quote, failing together, team failure, it always gets a laugh. I don't know if you're laughing, but everyone always laughs at this for some reason. But seriously, if you are all out there hearing lots of no's, it's going to increase your team success. That's just the bottom line. So that's what we're doing on this call tonight. So we want to wrap up a little bit, and I want to have plenty of time for Q&A. If you have something that's kind of a burning question, we're open to it. Feel free to challenge us. We love challenges, and anything that I can't answer, I'll just put Richard on the hot seat, and he will have to answer. But an important point here so that you understand kind of where we're coming from, and that is that staying persistent, which obviously is really the go for no mindset here, is not just about you and what you get out of the sale. We are not teaching you all to use go for no as a tool for evil. It's not about manipulating or badgering people or having people run from you. Obviously you have beautiful products and you want to have a demeanor and an attitude that matches those gorgeous products. But what we're talking about here is that most people give up way too soon, right? They take themselves out of the game like we were talking about earlier. And staying persistent can be a win-win. And what we're talking about here is really to have a to sell is to serve mindset, whether it's just selling somebody a new pair of sunglasses or a watch to getting them involved in a business opportunity and helping them grow a business for themselves. And the problem is that a lot of people see, quote, sales or even the business opportunity piece and serving others as choices. But obviously, they're not choices. They're something that you can do, you sell and serve together. You do those things simultaneously. Now, in the spirit of serving others, we want to just mention to you that we created that we have a special package on our website called the Go for No Breakthrough Pack, and I've told Leo about this. It's got our 4-CD audio training program. If you really are into this and you want to really reprogram the way you think, feel, and behave when it comes to hearing no, this is the program for you. We really spent a tremendous amount of time putting this together, and it's also got a 4th CD that has a printable workbook that you can print out that covers the 20 core concepts. It's got a couple other interesting things in there too. One of them is a personal development documentary movie that we created called Yes is the Destination, No is How You Get There, and it's got almost 58 people who we interviewed about how they have used all of these concepts that we've shared with you tonight, how they have used these in their business to be more successful. And then the third item is a reprogramming CD, literally a CD set to music with go for no statements so that you can listen to this and start internalizing these ideas and quickly start becoming a go for no person. People ask us all the time, how do I do this? Well, you've been living in a go for yes world for your whole life. So a big piece of this is to start reprogramming your thought process, and that's why we created this CD, is it really helps reinforce the messages in the training program and in the movie, so you can just pop it in your CD player in your car or put it on your iPod, and it's fabulous. So if you go to goforno.com, definitely do your no quotient that we gave you earlier, take that quiz, wait 30 days, come back and take it again, and when you go to the development store, just look for the Breakthrough Pack. We sell it on the website for $167, but whenever we do an event like this, we always do some kind of special offer. So we created a coupon code, which is GWT1 for Global Wealth Trade 1, the number 1, just like it sounds, and that'll take $70 off. So it's just $97 for that package instead of the $167. So I encourage you, if you're really interested in it, to take advantage. So with that, we want to wrap up here, and we want to make sure that we get some good Q&A in.
Wow, incredible, incredible training from Andrea, Waltz, and Richard Fenton. Thank you again for taking the time to be on this call. I know I learned a lot, and I used to have a consulting business, and Microsoft was a client of mine, and I know that Microsoft has a huge sales force. And the reason why companies like that need a huge sales force is to dig through all the no's to get through to the yeses. And so, I really loved what you said about exponential failure as a team or as an organization, because, billion-dollar companies out there get that and they understand it, and that's why they are billion-dollar companies, is because they have people to go through the no's to get through all the yeses. So that's amazing. So at this point, I'd love to open up the floor to anybody who has questions. If you do have a question, there's a question box in the GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar control panel on the right side of the screen. You can go to the question box, type in your questions, and we will read it for Andrea and Richard, and they will be more than happy to answer your question for you. So it looks like we have lots of questions coming in here. So let's see, our first question is from a luxury consultant by the name of David Kaptanovich in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. David says, what are your what are your opinions on building a smaller number of quality relationships versus just hammering out the numbers and telling the story ASAP? And do you see a balance between the two? What is most effective?
Yeah, you know, and I think it's important that we don't leave people. I'm glad we got that question, because we don't want to give the impression that it's all a numbers game and that the quality doesn't matter. If you can put quantity and quality together, you have the perfect world. And so our position really is this: most people work way too hard on the quality of their message. They don't work at all on the quantity of their message. And so because of that, we tend to stress the quantity side more. But we've met a number of people within the network marketing MLM profession who have built amazing teams and amazing businesses, you know, $1 million a year businesses, and they never sponsored more than 10 people the entire time. So what did they do? They obviously went out and got 10 really highly qualified people. They built and trained and developed those people so that they could reproduce themselves within that system and to be ultra successful. But I will tell you this: every one of those people that we ever talked to, they didn't say they approached 10 people and got 10 yeses. As a matter of fact, the mere fact that they were going after unbelievably high quality people, they got a much higher than usual amount of no's, because they were going after real, serious, high earning, quality business builders, and so therefore it was more difficult to get these people to even pick up the telephone. Each time that they contacted and they couldn't get through the gatekeeper, that was a no. Every time they got to the person, they said, "I'm not interested," that was a no. I mean, the amount of no's that they went through to get those 10 people were much higher than what most people go through to get a whole bunch of poor quality candidates. So I hope that you can see that both of these things go together. You have the quantity of approaches that you have to make. You have the quality of the approach and the quality of the people. In a perfect world, you do a high quantity of high quality approaches, and then whether you're going to lean towards one side or the other really is a personal preference as to how you want to build your team. But there is nothing wrong with building it with a limited number of really high-performing business builders.
Great. Thank you very much, Richard, and thank you, David, for asking that question. Our next question is coming in from Andrea Wolozotsky, another luxury consultant from Mississauga, Ontario, Canada, and her comment is, "This is really helping shift things for me. It's like this pressure to get the yes is easing. I'm not sure quite how to explain it, but it's almost like I feel this playfulness coming back. Like, oh, okay, that was for you, thanks, and on I go. Out of curiosity, what's a good amount of no goals to set? Is it per week? And what's a no reward?"
That's a great question. I'm glad that you feel that way, Andrea. It is kind of supposed to be playful. That's our goal. That's one of our goals. You know, there's no way for us to really set a no goal for you. What we like to suggest is to really look at kind of where you are, kind of study where you are for the last 30 days and create a baseline. And then for that next 30 days, and you can do it for a week. You can set a no goal for a week or even a month. It depends on kind of how much and to what extent you're really working your business. And then, so see how many no's you're getting really for that 30 days, and then maybe increase that by about 10%. Obviously, we don't get on this training and say, well, you guys all need to be getting 50 or 100 no's, because it completely all depends on what you've got going on. But that's pretty much what we suggest from a setting no goal standpoint. And then from a reward, if you reach that no goal, celebrate by doing whatever special thing you normally do for the yes, pretty much.
Got it. Got it. Well, Andrea actually has another follow-up question to that, and her question is, how do you keep following up to get that yes after the 4th or 5th time without seeming pushy? That's something I've struggled with.
Yeah, I love that question. And Richard and I have a philosophy that's pretty much just keep things short and sweet. Certainly you want to build relationships with people, and if you can, if you develop, things that you can talk about with this person that are non-business oriented, that's great. But if you're just following up with that person, we recommend just calling and saying, hey, we talked, whatever, 4 months ago, and I was just checking in with you. My business is going great, and I was thinking about you today, and I just wanted to see if anything's changed. Keep it short and sweet. You don't have to draw it out and go through a long, detailed explanation if there's maybe something new that you wanted to mention. But I would say keep it short and sweet. That way you don't have anxiety about following up, and they don't feel like they're listening to a long, drawn-out thing.
Yeah, exactly. And in our Go for No movie, one of the people in the movie, his name is David Fry, he made a really interesting comment. He said, I don't perceive Go for No as like a woodpecker pecking on a tree, where it's, again and again and again and again, and the 100th peck is identical to the first. He said, you keep going for no, but you keep coming in at a little different angle, a little different way. You have a different reason for approaching the person each time. Hey, I wanted to send you an article. Hey, I was thinking of you. Hey, I wanted to check to see if anything has changed. Maybe sending some little thing that just says, we're having a meeting, would love to have you there. Each time maybe just a little bit different, and yet every time that the person, doesn't respond, they are in essence saying no to you, whether they're verbalizing it or not. And what you're doing through this process is you are buying real estate in this person's mind. You are owning a piece of property within their head. And what you're looking for is the day where things do change, where their boss calls them in and chews them out for something that they did not do, and they say, you know what, I've really had it with this job. I've got to get out of this business. I hate this company. I hate my life. What am I going to do? And they go, oh, I keep having that person approach me, right, from Ferry. There will come a moment where they are ready. The question is, when they're ready, will you be the first person they think of? Or will they think of some other opportunity or some other company from some other person who has stayed in contact with them? This business is not any business. It's not something that you're going to build in 30 days or even 300 days. The question is, do you intend to be in this business 2 years from now? If you don't, then there's a problem right there. But if you do, understand that the people you approach today may not be ready for 2 years. But when they are ready, you should have been in regular contact with them, and then they will hear your story, and they will hear it because they're ready to hear it, not because you're just trying to tell it.
Love that answer, Richard. Thank you very much. We have another comment here coming in from Suzanne Maltman from Richmond Hill, Ontario, Canada, and Sue says, thanks so much, you two. Builds on what I have been doing to date, but need to really accelerate it all. So thanks so much for that comment, Sue. We have another comment here from Omid Batty, also from Toronto, Canada. Omid says, great information, thank you. Thanks for that comment, Omid. And then we have another question here coming all the way from California from Terrace Ellis. And Terrace from California says, brilliant strategy for reducing the resistance to no. Any empirical numbers versus anecdotal evidence, for example, stories, on the impact of setting no versus yes intentions?
We have a ton of numbers that I don't think would mean anything to anyone in relationship to, because they didn't give us their yes numbers in relationship to their no numbers. We've got a ton of statistics about how people have increased their recruiting numbers, their fundraising numbers, their sales numbers. In some cases, doubling and tripling numbers in 1 month from the previous month. Not necessarily a yes to a no.
Yeah, we have everything from our experience and from the. By the way, we've done this program that we teach. We've worked with probably 50 different network marketing companies, direct sales organizations. But we've also worked with American Express, Samsonite, Tommy Hilfiger, J.C. Penney, on and on and on. Pep Boys, I mean, you name it, we've worked in the industries. And we have had, and of course it depends on the type of business we're working in, We've worked with financial planners. We've worked with chiropractors. We've worked with real estate agents. And you can't walk into an American Express office and have the American Express business increase their business by 400%. Okay, that just doesn't happen. But we've had financial planners who have increased their business by 400%. Literally over the course of a year, they've increased, they have 4 times the amount of business they had a year previous because they applied the go for no philosophy. On the other end of the spectrum, we have people who we talk with who have 0 impact. And that's because they cannot wrap their brain around the idea that if they would just increase their failure rate, that their success rate would improve automatically. And so the answer to the empirical evidence and the numbers evidence, we have it for all different types of industries, and the numbers run the gamut, and it's very personal to the willingness on the recipient's part to apply it to their particular business. I will tell you this just from our own particular situation. Andrea and I were in high-paying jobs working in executive positions for a major American corporation, and we left, quit our jobs, used the go for no philosophy to launch our sales and marketing training business, and within 3 years we had increased our personal incomes by 500%. We were earning 5 times more money than we were in our previous jobs with our corporate cars and our health care and everything else that we were given. Whether our experience is typical, I'd probably say not, because we had a super vested interest in our success because we created the program. But the answer is whatever you decide to do with this information is going to be your results. I also have no doubt that there are some people who have started in the network marketing industry who have gone from literally just coming on board with their company who are now earning, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, and I don't even know how you measure, measure that.
Yeah. Sure. I do want to just mention something, Leah, if you don't mind me saying this really quick. My favorite story was this woman actually in insurance who had absolutely no experience. She had no experience in anything, and she joined the company. She happened to read get a copy of Go for No from her husband. She read it, and she literally, it was like ignorance and Go for No just combining together. Someone with no preconceived notions, no idea what she was doing. She just literally went out there and did the Go for No concepts and ended up being one of the top sellers in the entire company and won the trip to Hawaii and all of that just because she didn't even really analyze it. She just went out there and did it.
Love that, Andrea. I think our CEO calls that ignorance on fire. So
yes.
Definitely works definitely works wonders when you go for no. So thanks for that question, Terrace. And our next question is coming in from Rita Calmon from the Celebration area of the Orlando area. And Rita asks, how do you personally keep yourselves motivated each day while going for no?
The answer to that, more than anything, and this is going to really be where it's going to sound kind of strange. And I guess you could say, when everybody on this call hears this, they might say, geez, these people are really serious about this. And I'm going to give you the answer by telling you a story. Andrea and I, a few years ago, and this is when we really needed the money. We had a period in the business after 9/11. Seminars were off. Businesses weren't buying. Things were tough. We finally had a line on a large company who wanted us to come and do a series of seminars for them. It was a $75,000 project, and like I said, it was at a time where we really needed the money. And the phone rang. Andrea answered it. She was on the phone with the client, and I could just hear from what she was saying that we did not get the contract. I could hear the, okay, we understand. Let's stay in touch, maybe next year, and she hung up the phone and she said, we didn't get, I'm not going to say what company it was, but we didn't get ABC. We both spun around in our chairs and high-fived each other and went back to our computers and continued working. And it was in that exact moment that I realized that the mechanism that we created for ourselves was when we hear the word no, we celebrate it. When we hear the word yes, we don't celebrate it. And in that way, we move the no's, which are typically the lows for most people, up on our emotional scale. And we take the yeses, which are usually where people get all excited and they go out and buy something for themselves, and we would take that down in emotion so that the words yes and the words no have an equal emotional value. We do not value one more than the other. And I'll tell you one other little story here, which is really fascinating. Young lady who's become a good friend, Lisa Jimenez. She wrote the book Conquer Fear. Thank you. Lisa tapes a $50 bill to her phone. She knows that if she makes 10 calls, that 9 people will say no, and the 10th person is going to say yes. When somebody says no to her, and she also knows that she's going to make $500 every time someone says yes, right? The yeses are worth $500 to her. Here's what Lisa's done that's so genius. When she gets a no, she hangs up the phone. She doesn't say this to the person. She hangs up the phone and she says, "Thank you for the $50. Every single time that someone says no to her, she says, "Thank you for the $50. In other words, she has placed a value on hearing the word no. Here's where it's really fascinating. When she finally gets the yes and someone buys, she hangs up the phone and she doesn't say, "Yay, I made $500. She says, "Thank you for the $50. Because both no and yes has an equal value to her. Therefore, every time she touches the phone, she makes money irrespective of what somebody tells her. If you can get to that level, you'll be motivated.
Great knowledge and wisdom being shared here from Richard and Andrea. Thank you, Rita, for your question. And we do have another comment from Rita saying, listening to both your energy makes me realize how important a support team really is. And so I'm sure that both Richard and Andrea definitely recommend a Go for No partner to support you in your journey on your Go for No adventure. So thank you for that comment, Rita. We also have a comment coming in here from Omid Badi again from Toronto saying, I first heard this concept through Mr. David Hooker, who's our VP of International Business Development, and started to incorporate it into my daily TTP activity, which is Talking to People activity, another David Hooker term. And it has made the experience more fun, and I have seen better results in terms of prospects showing up for presentations and fewer no-shows. So there's a great example from Omid. Thank you for that, Omid. And we also have a comment here from Nora Bastien from Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada. And Nora states, thank you, Lior and Christy, for having them tonight. I have listened to their webinar before on the Networking Times, and I got more from them tonight, especially the follow-up approach using the woodpecker example and having a different approach of follow-up all the time by keeping it simple. So thank you very much for that comment, Nora from Niagara Falls. We also have Suzanne Maltman again commenting, saying, very interesting. That's exactly Ramin's philosophy. Celebrate the no's and work through the yeses. So that's in response to Andrea and Richard's answer a few minutes ago. So thank you very much for that comment, Sue. Now, I also have a text message question here from Jake here from the Lake Mary area of Orlando. And Jacob is on his iPad, so he cannot ask a question through his iPad, but he did send me a question asking, what type of lead system do you see others use to keep pace with the continuous flow of leads for follow-up? Well, that's a great question, Jacob, and we actually recommend the Forensic Networker system, which the CEO of Global Wealth Trade, Ramin Masgarlu, created, the same system that he used to actually make $5.5 million as a distributor in direct sales. I know that Jacob is one of our newest luxury consultants, and so he may not have seen the system, but Jacob, definitely go to www.forensicnetworker.com and you will see Ramin's system that he has used in order to follow up with leads. Now, one question that Jacob does have for Richard and Andrea is, where can we see success stories from others on this concept?
Oh, that's a good question. Definitely go to our website. We've got a laundry list of just a whole bunch of stories and testimonials and things like that. And And I would also encourage people to go to our YouTube channel. If you go into YouTube and you type in "go for no," I think in quotes, just to make sure that you get "go for no," you'll see some "go for no" snippets from our movie, which is really interesting because it's all of those people that we interviewed, and while they weren't necessarily using "go for no" at the time, in other words, they weren't calling it "go for no," but it's really inspiring to see people who have reached a level of success in their lives talk about how it's been for them and what it's meant for their lives and their business.
Excellent. And Jacob also says, tell them that I love Go for No and I want them to sign my copy of their book. And Jacob's in Lake Mary, which is not too far from downtown Orlando, so I'm pretty sure we can make that happen for you, Jacob.
Yeah.
And, well, we live right off of Church Street, so if you're gonna be down in the Church Street area some night and you want to let us know where you're going to be, and we'll meet you downstairs at Rusty Spoon or Cress or somewhere, and we'll be glad to sign your book and maybe have a glass of wine with you.
Great. I think I'm going to join you guys on that one. It looks like we have come to the completion of our questions and comments. Once again, I just want to say thank you very, very much, Richard and Andrea, for your time, spending over an hour with us and the team here on the call. I know you're very busy and you're traveling all around the world and doing some of the great things that you're doing, and we all appreciate you taking the time to be on the call. And I do know that Christy is also on the line, and she wants to say a few words. Christy?
Thank you so much, Lior. Wow, what an amazing training. Thank you so much, Richard and Andrea. We really appreciate the time you spent with us, and of course the special offer that you provided for our luxury consultants in our team. So thank you for your passion and your energy and your knowledge. It was very, very well put together, great quality information, and I know it's just a perfect marriage of information with what our luxury consultants are going through right now as they're following the forensic system, and they're hitting their numbers every single day, making their calls and doing their tours. So it's just been a real pleasure to listen to the information. I learned a lot, and it always refreshes things in my mind to hear such quality information. So we really appreciate your time, and thank you again, Lior, for taking the time and connecting Richard and Andrea with the team so that we can all be here together and be able to have this incredible training. And before we close off the call tonight, I just wanted to share a really quick story and congratulations to one of our luxury consultants. And you all know the power of our SAC program and being able to contribute money month after month into your shopping account. And he actually this fall, we met up at the showroom, and he got a beautiful custom-designed Fairy Mosh diamond ring, and he just got back from a trip, and he's now engaged. So I want to congratulate Richie Islawa. Congratulations on your engagement, and what an amazing business to be able to save up for year after year and be able to give the person that you love a beautiful diamond ring. So I thought I would share that with all of our luxury consultants because it's an amazing story, and when you see Richie in the office next time, definitely congratulate him, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see his beautiful fiancée soon as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for being on the call tonight. Lior, back to you.
Wow, what an amazing story. Congratulations, Richie, and to your fiancé as well. And thank you, everybody, for being on this call from all around the world. We have people from many different countries, and I know there's many choices you could have made of where you could have been, but you made the choice to be here, so we appreciate you making the choice. I'm sure you got a lot of value from all of the information that you learned today, and we look forward to seeing you again on next Monday's Elite Expansion Team Weekly Webinar. Have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. Bye-bye.